What we're going to have a look at in this video is texture smoothing. So we're going to do it in the context of airbrushing the skin, but if you've taken a still life photograph, for example, and you're in the studio and the backdrop has a crease in it, you can use these techniques to remove that. If there's kind of a shiny bit on a surface in a photograph that you've taken, you can again use these techniques to remove it. So there's multiple applications for this. When you are starting off with airbrushing the skin and removing any texture from the skin, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove any larger blemishes. We've got other videos on how to use the patch tool and how to use the spot healing brush tool. So I'd recommend you go and watch those first and then come back. So I've now removed any of those larger blemishes using the spot healing brush tool and the patch tool. So if I just show my current layer, so this was the original image, and you can see that I've removed a couple of those little spots, but mainly the makeup and kind of little flakes that have gone into her eyebrows from that makeup. The next step is to now start to remove the texture from the skin. It doesn't have to be from skin. This technique will work removing texture from anything. You know, if you've got a reflection or a shine on a still life object that you want to soften, this can work just as well on that. So our first step in doing that is to open up a new blank layer. So you're going to go to the bottom of your layers tab and press the little square that has a plus in it. We're then going to use our brush tool. So we're going to make sure it is the normal kind of paintbrush symbol. And up at the top, we're going to change the opacity to 10%. We're then going to click this box here. If you hover over it, it will say enable airbrush style build-up effects. That's what we want. So you want to make sure that along the top we've got 10% opacity and that airbrush build-up effects selected. I'm then going to right click and ensure that the hardness of my brush is on 0%. That's going to give us a really nice soft edge. Everything here is about blending and softness. Now, the key with this is to ensure that you're selecting the appropriate colour. So you're going to hold down Alt on your keyboard, or if you're on a Mac, it will be Option, and you'll get this little ink dropper tool up. If you now move around and click, it's going to select different colours depending on where you're clicking. So if we click down here on the blue, you'll see that it turns blue. If you go on the pink or the red, it's going to go pink or red. So I want to get rid of this kind of highlight here where the light is bouncing off of her face. That's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to click kind of in the middle. I've now got that colour selected. Each time you click and drag, it puts a little layer on top. So that's 10% opacity. If I click on the same spot and drag around again, that makes it 20%, again 30%, and so on. I'm then going to select another colour, and I'm going to go along this bit. This technique is all about making sure that you are consistently checking and rechecking the colours that you're using, because that's what's going to enable you to get that kind of more seamless blend. You can also, where there's a slight dark circle under her eye, I'm going to pick a colour that is slightly lighter rather than picking the one that is actually in the dark circle. And I'm going to bring that lighter colour up towards that dark circle and just cover it a little bit. As you're doing this, you'll probably find that it doesn't look particularly different, and you'll kind of keep going and keep going. The most important thing to do is to zoom out and check. So if we zoom out now, you can see that it's looking much smoother. And if I hide this layer that I've been doing my airbrushing on, it's made a huge difference already. That's the trickiest part of this technique, is knowing when to stop, because when you're doing it at the time, you can't see much of a difference. So it's really important to zoom out, hide your layer, check what you've done, and make sure that you're not going overboard. Make sure that the colours that you're using are correct and smooth. If you find that you have gone a little bit overboard and it's looking a little bit odd, you have got one fail-safe, which is to go into your layers panel, and you'll see that there's an opacity slider here as well. If we reduce that from 100%, it essentially makes that layer a little bit more see-through. So you can kind of reduce the harshness of your airbrushing that way as well. Once we've done this to the whole face, I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've now done the rest of the face, and this is what we end up with. So you can see that there's still some texture there. It still looks like skin, but it's a lot smoother. If I hide the layer, that was what we started with, and then this is what we end up with. Like I say, when you zoom in, you can still see that there is some texture there, but it just is smoother, and you've kind of helped that lighting out and improved the sort of technical quality of the image.